بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to a Quran step recorded on Tuesday 4th October 2016, 3rd Muharram 1438. We're continuing with our journey through ayah number 29. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. Let's begin with the recitation. هو الذي خلق لكم ما في الأرض جميعا ثم استوى إلى السماء فسواهن سبع سماوات وهو بكل شيء عليم. We covered the initial part of this ayah. هو الذي خلق لكم. It is He, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who created for you, mankind. ما في الأرض جميعا. All of that which is on the earth. We talked about the elements and those that are found in human beings and what was meant by that, and how ulama explained this to make sure that everything is halal for human beings, and some take the opposite opinion. Today we'll continue. ثم استوى إلى السماء. Then He directed Himself إلى السماء, to the heaven, and in Sahih International also says His being above all creation. فسواهن, and He made them. فسواهن, and He made them. سبع سماوات, 7 heavens. وهو بكل شيء عليم, and He is knowing of all things. So let's look at the bits piece by piece. Then He directed Himself. The word directed here that's translated is istawa. And I want you to notice what word comes after istawa, ila. So let's have a look at this. Why is istawa translated as directed, and at the same time it's being translated as being above in the Sahih International? To understand that, we have to look at the meaning of the word istawa. So I found a nice summary in Shaykh Sa'di's tafsir, and he says this. Number one, he divides it into 3 meanings. The first one is al-kamal, perfection, something being completed, or ala wa irtafa'a, to go high, to become high, or qasd, to intend something. So let's read what he says for kamal. استوى ترد في القرآن على 3 معاني. This word has come in 3 meanings. فتارة, sometimes. لا تعدي بالحرف. It doesn't have a particle. So if we look here in the Quran, it says istawa and then it has ila. Okay? Sometimes you will have a verb without any small added word after it. It doesn't say istawa as-sama. It says istawa ila as-sama. This ila is called a harf. And a verb that uses this harf when in a sentence is called muta'addi. It uses muta'addin or al-muta'addi. It uses the small word like cement between 2 bricks. I like to think of words as bricks, and I like to think of these small words, thumma, ila, fi, as the cement that joins the bricks. Now remember, in Arabic we have 3 types of bricks. We've got verbs, verb bricks, words, noun bricks, and particle bricks. So istawa is a verb, and it acts on a noun, but it has to go through this small particle, al-harf. So we say it is al-muta'addi bi ila. It uses ila to act on the word sama. So that's what he's saying. So fataratan la tu'addi bil harf. Sometimes this word is used istawa without the following particle, without the following harf. In that case, it is not muta'addi bil harf. فيكون معناها, in that case its meaning is al-kamal, perfection, والتمام, being complete. كما في قوله, in just as you find in the statement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala about Musa alayhi salam. What did he say? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says وَلَمَّا, and when, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم, وَلَمَّا, and when, بَلَغَ, he reached, أشده, his maximum strength, i.e. his peak strength, وَاسْتَوَى, and he reached his perfection, as perfection in his hikmah, wisdom, ability to understand, etc. Okay, so here this word is used for Musa alayhi salam, and the word is istawa, without a following particle. And then Shaykh Sadi continues and he says, وَتَارَةً, and at other times, تكون بمعنى, its meaning is على, to go over, وارتفع, to go high. وذلك, and that happens إذا عديت بعلى. Here this happens when the verb istawa is followed by the particle not ila. Remember here we had istawa ila, but ala. كما في قوله تعالى, and he gives one example as it occurs in the ayah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ثم استوى على العرش, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala istawa ala, on top of the arsh. Okay, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala went high or went over the arsh. And then he gives another very nice example, which we use this ayat to understand the dua you read when you go on a car or a plane. What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. وَالَّذِي, and he is the one who خَلَقَ الْأَزْوَاجَ, who created the pairs, كُلَّهَا, all of them. وَجَعَلَ لَكُمْ, and he made for you, human beings, مِنَ الْفُلْكِ, from boats or ships, وَالْأَنْعَامِ, and beasts of burden, مَا تَرْكَبُونَ, which things which you mount, which you go on top of. And then here it says لِتَسْتَوُوا. لِتَسْتَوُوا, this is the present tense of the word istawa. Okay, istawa, yastawi, tastawu, the plural. Tastawu, that you go on ala. Can you see here the word istawa? The verb is followed by the particle ala. لِتَسْتَوُوا عَلَى ظُهُورِهِ, so you go on their backs. So when you go on an animal or you go on a ship, you are riding on the upper part of the animal or the ship. Hence the word istawa ala means to go above. ثُمَّ تَذْكُرُوا, and then you remember نِعْمَةَ رَبِّكُمْ, the ni'mah, bounty of your Lord, رَبِّكُمْ, إِذَا اسْتَوَيْتُمْ عَلَيْهِ, this is the past tense of istawa, istawaytum, once you have gone alayhi, on top of it. Okay, and what do you say once you have mounted the animal, once you've boarded the ship? وَتَقُولُ, and then you say Subhana, and this is the dua that we read when we go to travel. Subhana, perfect is the one, الَّذِي سَخَّرَ, who has subdued, made this possible, lana, for us, hada, this thing, the ship or the animal we're on, wama kunna, and we were not able to, lahu, for it, muqrinin, muqrin, able to subdue it. Muqrinin is a very interesting word, and I'll just go click on that in a second. Wa inna ila rabbina, and indeed to our Lord, wa inna ila rabbina lamunqalibun, we are returning. So let's just have a look at this word muqrinin, because it's a very interesting word, and the Quran is full of very, very interesting words. Subhanallah. Okay, let's look at muqrinin. So, to remind you, the word qarn literally means horn. Okay, and a horn is called a horn because they're usually paired. They come in pairs, and that's the secret behind the word qarn. Pairs. Okay, so a qareen is a companion. So remember the root letters of muqrinin. Let's go back to where we were just now a second ago. If you look at the word muqrinin, okay, it's got the qaf, the ra, and the nun. So those are the root letters of muqrinin. So now we're looking at other words that are related to these root letters. So the word qarn literally means horns, and they're so called because they have a pair of horns. And that's where you get the word qareen, is a companion, somebody who pairs up with you. Qarn, when people pair up with each other, they're living usually in the same time. Hence you get the word century, because you're people from the same century, people from the same time. We talk about hajj, the different types of hajj. There are three types of hajj: tamattu, ifrad, and qiran, or qiranul hajj. A person who combines two things together without a break. Hajj and umrah in a single ihram. Okay, and muqrinin. Why is muqrinin? It's a very interesting word. I just want to read what Shaykh Tantawi says here. Muqrinin ay mutiqin wa qadirin wa dhabitin. Somebody who is capable of subduing these things. من أقرن الشيء إذا أطاقه وقدر عليه حتى لكأنه صار له قرنا أي مثله في الشدة والقوة. So a muqrinin in this ayah, if we go back to the ayah that we were dealing with today, here in this sub-bit, when we talk about the ship or the animal that we are now acknowledging to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that it is actually because of Allah that we are able to be muqrineen to this. وَمَا كُنَّا لَهُ مُقْرِنِينَ. We would not be able to be muqrin to this animal. We would not be able to control it. We would not be able to meet the challenge of using this means of transport, being equal and up to the challenge. So almost like if you have, remember the paired horns, so if you have one horn, you need, if the animal is very strong, you need to be equal in some way to be able to meet that challenge with the equivalent strength, so you can actually use the animal. And that's what the word muqrineen means, and that's why it's related to the word qarn, which is related to the word pairing or coupling. So it's really amazing. So I just want you to think about this for a bit. Think about what's mentioned in the ayah, the transport. First we have an'am, we have animals. I put animals. In fact, in the ayah it actually gives al-fulk. Okay, وَجَعَلَ لَكُم مِّنَ الْفُلْكِ. We made ships and beasts of burden. So let's think about animals. They're living beings, okay? And if you think of any animal compared to a single human being, is much, much stronger. So they're living beings, they want to do what they want to do, and they're much stronger than physically a human being. So how do we meet this challenge? How do we become equivalent in strength to the animal? Is we use our knowledge to tame them and train them. And that's how these animals are capable of being tamed and trained. And that capability is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Subhanallah. And that's what we acknowledge when we say Subhanalladhi sakhara lana. Perfect is the one who has subdued these animals so that they are capable of being trained, okay, and that we can be muqrineen to them. وَمَا كُنَّ لَهُ مُقْرِنِينَ. And we are able to rise up to the challenge of using these animals as a means of transport. Same thing if you think about ships, when it says al-fulk. What is a ship? A ship is a really heavy thing on water, and heavy things in water usually sink. But this is a challenge. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has allowed us to overcome this challenge by understanding the concept of density. So we can make something really big, but we actually make it less dense than water, and that's why it floats. Subhanallah. So those laws of physics, those laws allow us to be muqrineen to the water and ships. In the same way, if you think about modern things, when you mount an engine or you get on a plane, right? Essentially, they're all using a combustion engine. They're using a fuel which is explosive. And if we're unable to control the explosion, we'll get an uncontrolled process and would not be able to fly or drive cars. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has allowed us to control the burning process, to be muqrineen, to be equal to the challenge of controlling the power of petrol or diesel or any fuel that we happen to be using. So subhanallah, the Quran is always drawing us back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Hence, look how this ayah ends, وَإِنَّا إِلَىٰ رَبِّنَا لَمُنْقَلِبُونَ. So when do we say this? When we are istawaytum ala dhuhuriha, litastawu ala dhuhuriha, and then when we go on top, إِذَا اسْتَوَيْتُمْ عَلَيْهِ وَتَقُولُ سُبْحَانَ الَّذِي سَخَّرَ لَنَا. So we came to this ayah because we were talking about the word istawa. Let me just finish off with muqrineen, because it might strike your mind that Dhul Qarnayn, right, one of the people mentioned in the Quran, is called the possessor of the two qarns. So Qarnayn, remember we talked about coupling is the key concept inside the word qarn. And if you look, this is a picture of America, and this actually shows the population density of people in America. So we sort of zoom in a bit. You can see a lot of people live on the east coast or close to the east coast, and there's a fair amount of population centers in the west coast. So when you talk about the United States of America, people talk about the east and west coast. Effectively, if you control the two coasts, you control the entire country. And that is where one of the meanings or one of the understandings of why Dhul Qarnayn was called Dhul Qarnayn, because he was a person who ruled over two major countries, Persia and Rome. Okay, and now Malik, Faris, or Rome, so this is one of the reasons why he was called Dhul Qarnayn. He had coupled power and control over two countries. So That's interesting, and it just reminds us how the word qarn is used. There's another understanding for what Dhul Qarnayn is called, because there are actually 10 explanations why he's got this, but I've just taken the top two. And وَأَنَّهُ كَانَ لَهُ ضَفِيرَتان. In other words, he had two ponytails and from his hair, and that's why he was called Dhul Qarnayn. Allah knows best what is the right answer, but this is what the ulama quote. Let's go back to where we were. Right, so we talked about istawa. If it's on its own, it means to be complete, like Musa alayhi salam. If it's with the word ala, it means to be on top of something, just like when we're talking about a boat or getting on top of an animal. And if it's just with ila, if it comes with ila, it means qasd, okay, to aim for something. وَتَارَةً تَكُونُ بِمَعنَى قَصْد, i.e. to direct yourself, to put your attention to something, to deal with something. إذا عديت بإلى كما في هذه الآية أي لما خلق تعالى الأرض قصد إلى خلق السماوات. So after Allah subhanahu has created the earth, He has then directed His attention to the as-samawat. So we'll stop here. So this is an interesting ayah, and it's led us to other interesting ayat and words in the Arabic language. And I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues to increase our love of the Arabic language and our understanding of the Quran and appreciation of our connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala all the time. So inshallah, next time you sit on your car and you say the dua, Subhanalladhi sakhara lana hadha wa ma kunna lahu muqrinin wa inna ila rabbina lamunqalibun, you'll remember what the word muqrinin means. Think about the two horns and Dhul Qarnayn and pairing. Okay, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.